The spike in cooking oil prices is still a hot topic, because the fact that Indonesia is the world's largest CPO producer makes it an irony. The question that arises today: why is the price of cooking oil rising so high? Cooking oil is one of the commodities that has an important role in the economy of the Indonesian people, because it is one of the 9 basic commodities. The significant increase in cooking oil prices was due to the increase in world CPO, crude palm oil prices, which contributed to the increase in domestic CPO prices and the amount of CPO inventories for the domestic market. The consequences of this increase in cooking oil prices will certainly have an impact on consumers. Moreover, Indonesian people are very familiar with all fried dishes. Starting from fried food vendors, food stalls, and of course housewives have felt the impact of rising cooking oil prices. Indonesian people are very familiar with crackers, and this type of business uses large amounts of cooking oil as one of the main ingredients. Jabodetabek, especially Bekasi, experienced the highest increase in oil prices of around 41.5%. This condition certainly has an impact on the cracker frying business. Starting February 1, 2022, the government intervened by setting the highest retail price, het, for cooking oil starting at 11,500 Indonesian rupiahs per liter. Simple packaged cooking oil is 13,500 Indonesian rupiahs per liter, and premium packaged cooking oil is 14,000 Indonesian rupiahs per liter. Secretary General of the DPP Indonesian Market Traders Association, IKP, Reynaldi Sarajawan, assessed that the government's policy did not reach market traders in remote parts of the country. This is evident: the price of cooking oil is still expensive in a number of areas in Indonesia. Secretary General of the DPP Indonesian Market Traders Association, IKP, Reynaldi Sarajawan, assessed that the government's policy did not reach market traders in remote parts of the country. This is evident: the price of cooking oil is still expensive in a number of areas in Indonesia. According to him, it is certain that het will not apply in traditional markets because in that market there is a bargaining system, so there is a price agreement. If the government only focuses on modern retail, it will not be able to lower and control the price of cooking oil. Domestic cooking oil producers are also collaborating with modern retail business actors to allocate simple packaged cooking oil at a price of Rp. 14,000 a head. Christmas and New Year's Day. The volume of the allocation of cheap cooking oil reaches 11 million liters, which is distributed to every modern retail outlet nationally. Executive Director of the Indonesian Vegetable Oil Industry Association, GIMNI, Sahat Sinaga, said the step was taken to suppress cooking oil prices, which were also affected by the cycle of crude palm oil or CPO, crude palm oil, commodities in the world market. On the other hand, there is also panic buying behavior by consumers in buying cooking oil at one price, which should not be done. The Indonesian Consumers Foundation, YLKI, criticized the government's intervention that the price of cooking oil at one price was not effective. YLKI views that there are several aspects that need to be highlighted. The first is the weak understanding of consumers regarding panic buying, especially since the Ministry of Trade, Kemendag, stopped selling bulk cooking oil since January 1, 2022. The government requires the sale of cooking oil only in packaged form, which will later provide product-related information. Reasons for prohibition of selling bulk cooking oil. The basic reason Indonesia no longer sells bulk cooking oil is because currently almost all countries in the world sell cooking oil in packaged form. The prohibition on selling bulk cooking oil is contained in the Minister of Trade Regulation, Permendag, number 36 of 2020 concerning mandatory packaged palm cooking oil. Price of cooking oil in Indonesia, IDR, January 2021 to January 2022. The cooking oil commonly consumed in Indonesia is produced from crude palm oil, CPO. The price of CPO in Indonesia is mainly pegged to the auction price set by PT. Karisma Pemasaran Besar Nusantara, KPBN, Dumai, a subsidiary of Nusantara Plantation Holding Company, PT Perkebunan Nasional Holding or PTPN, that directly correlates with international CPO prices. The price of cooking oil in Indonesia is thus directly affected by international CPO prices. Throughout 2021, the international price of CPO significantly increased by 36.3% compared to 2020. By January 2022, the price had peaked at IDR 15,000 per kilogram, the highest price ever recorded in history, as reported by Palm Oil Indonesia, quoting KPBN director Ramanto Amin Jatmiko. The high price was attributed to supply shortages amidst increasing demands in many parts of the world as economies were recovering from the second wave of COVID-19. International prices of CPO and olein, January 2020 to December 2021. Director General of Domestic Trade at the Ministry of Trade, OK Nurwan, as quoted by Ekonomi Business, attributed the supply shortage to a reduction in productivity of oil palm plantations owned by state-owned enterprises, the private sectors and smallholder farmers in both Indonesia and Malaysia, the two main palm oil producers that together supply at least 85% of the world's palm oil production. It was also seen as a spillover effect of the decreasing production of other vegetable oils such as rapeseed oil and soybean oil, which has caused demands for alternatives such as palm oil to rise. CPO production in Indonesia itself has shown a downward trend since 2019. In 2021 it further decreased by 0.9% to 46.89 million tons, Table 1. Detailed data on the ending stocks of CPO in 2021 were not yet publicly available at the time of writing, but the Council of Palm Oil Producing Countries, CPOPC, Outlook 2022 report indicates that the ending stocks in Indonesia were below the average level of 4 million tons. CPO production in Indonesia, 2018 to 2021. The director of KPBN, as quoted in several media websites in the CPOPC 2022 Outlook report, further attributed the declining palm oil production to three main factors. The first is the labor shortage in Malaysia. The COVID-19 lockdown has limited mobility and caused oil palm plantations to limit the number of their workers, and as a result, many workers had to return to their hometowns. Shortage of labor in oil palm plantations reduces production capacity. The second factor is bad weather, which has led to flooding in oil palm plantations and disrupted productivity. The third factor is the high cost of fertilizers that has limited oil palm farmers access to affordable fertilizers. Prices of nitrogen and phosphate-based fertilizers that are often used by oil palm farmers rose by 50 to 80% in mid-2021 due to supply chain disruption during the pandemic, rising freight cost, higher demand, and higher input cost. With fertilizers being a major cost component in palm oil production, accounting for 30 to 35% of total production costs, expensive fertilizers would increase production costs. Smallholder farmers unable to afford the cost would then apply less, and consequently this will lower yields. The high cost of fertilizers may significantly affect palm oil production by smallholder farmers who contribute up to 34% of Indonesia's palm oil output. Among the causes of low oil palm productivity, the problem of access to fertilizers among oil palm farmers was recently highlighted in the Indonesian media. Minister of Trade, Muhammad Lutfi, claimed in a press release quoted by Kata Data that access to affordable fertilizers and distribution of subsidized fertilizers were key to meeting global demand for palm oil, which is predicted to increase by 6.5%, Table 2, in 2022. Domestically, the demand for palm oil processed into cooking oil for household consumption is also expected to increase. Meanwhile, the use of fertilizer among oil palm farmers decreased due to limited availability of subsidized fertilizer in 2021. The minister indicated that the dismal actual allocation of the targeted amount of subsidized fertilizer, as well as distribution problems, have led to a lack of access to affordable subsidized fertilizers among oil palm farmers. The Minister of Trade further emphasized that the availability of affordable fertilizers for oil palm farmers will be one of the main agenda of the closed coordination meeting regarding the Farmers Group proposal for subsidized fertilizers, Rencana Definitif Kebutuhan Kelompok or RDKK, in 2022. The gap between availability and the requested amount of subsidized fertilizers is addressed in SIP's policy paper on fertilizer and seed subsidies, and the solution to the problem is not as simple as merely increasing the supply of subsidized fertilizer to fulfill the proposed needs of farmers. SIP's study found that the scarcity of subsidized fertilizer is not the only shortcoming of the fertilizer subsidy program. The price disparity between subsidized and unsubsidized fertilizers has led to suboptimal input use of fertilizers among farmers that discourage optimal yield. As farmers' use of fertilizer often depends on its cost, the price disparity can lead them to overly consume chemical fertilizers that are subsidized or reduce their fertilizer usage altogether if left with the alternative to buy more expensive fertilizers. The creation of a secondary market from subsidized fertilizer is also a problem, which could distort prices and exacerbate the lack of access for farmers to affordable fertilizer. One of SIP's policy recommendations to address the issue with fertilizer subsidy is a gradual reform of the government's input subsidy program to full market mechanism. Beyond the immediate palm oil productivity problems, there are also other long-term issues related to oil palm productivity that add to the complexity of palm oil problems, such as the lack of new replanting of oil palm plantations, which would lead to weaker output growth. In addition to declining oil palm plantation productivity, increasing global demand for palm oil-based biofuel could also potentially reduce the supply of CPO for cooking oil production. Countries including Indonesia have been implementing biodiesel programs that require blending of diesel fuel with biofuel. According to the Indonesian Palm Oil Association, GAPKI, the share of CPO production for biofuel has increased by 24% from 2019 to 2020, and this increase was followed by a reduction in the share of CPO processed into food commodities such as cooking oil in Indonesia. In order to curb the rising price of cooking oil at the consumer level, the government has responded with several policy instruments. The policies include cooking oil subsidies, domestic market obligation, DMO, and domestic price obligation, DPO, that require CPO exporters to sell 20% of their export volume for domestic consumption at a set price of IDR 9,300 per kilogram, and the setting of a ceiling price for cooking oil at 11,500 Indonesian rupiahs per liter for bulk cooking oil and 14,000 per liter for premium packaged cooking oil under Ministry of Trade Regulation No. 6/2020. Despite these efforts, the policies were only short-term in nature and could hurt producers and farmers, as well as exacerbate supply shortages if the price of CPO and cost of production remained high. During the implementation of the single price or subsidy policy in mid-January 2021, supply shortages in some retailers remained a problem. GAPKI, as quoted in Antara News, expected the supply of CPO to remain limited until March 2022, which also meant that the price of CPO and cooking oil will likely remain high. Summary of data on the impact of rising cooking oil prices. Based on a report from the Institute for Demographic and Poverty Studies, the economic loss due to rising cooking oil prices is estimated at 3.38 trillion Indonesian rupiahs. Based on their economic class, people with per capita expenditures of Rp. 1 million, Rp. 1.5 million per month experienced the biggest losses, namely 0.82 trillion. The loss is calculated using the assumption of cooking oil consumption of 2.21 million per day. As is known, the government revoked the Ministry of Trade Regulation, Permendig, No. 6 of 2022 concerning the highest retail price, (HET), for packaged cooking oil, after the scarcity of packaged cooking oil in the community. Cooking oil prices in 34 provinces in Indonesia are available here. The average price for branded packaged oil is IDR 56,000, while bulk oil is up to IDR 23,000 per kilogram. As is known, the government has revoked the highest retail price or HET for packaged oil but has maintained the subsidized price of bulk oil with a maximum price of IDR 14,000 per liter since March 16, 2022. However, the reality in the market is different from the established rules. The average price of cooking oil in traditional markets in 34 provinces in Indonesia is very volatile. Thank you. That's my presentation about cooking oil. Sorry if there are mistakes in saying or something else, please sorry. I hope this presentation can be useful. God bless.